Hi everyone, welcome to our first art lesson. Today we are going to take a piece of paper for a walk. That sounds kind of strange, but what it means is we're going to take our paper outside and see what kind of rubbings and marks we can make from things that we find in nature. I suppose you're kind of making a map of your own backyard. At the end, you might need a bit of help from an adult to finish your map of your backyard off. Are you ready to start? Watch each of the instructions step by step. Let's go. First of all, you need some paper. Any paper you have lying around at home will do. Just check first if it's okay to use it. Next, you'll need some crayons if you have some. A piece of charcoal would also do. Pencils would also work, but they might be a little bit more tricky when you're outside trying to make rubbings on some of the really rough surfaces. Make sure you collect what you need before we start. The first stop in my own backyard was the fireplace. Of course, I made sure there wasn't a fire in it before I looked inside. I found some charcoal that had been left behind from a fire a few days ago. I wonder what kind of mark the charcoal will make. And here it is. I made a mark right across my paper from one side to the other, and then I kind of smudged it with one of my fingers. It makes a really great mark, don't you think? My next stop was the outdoor couch. Now this furniture has got a really nice rough surface, kind of like a basket. So I put my paper onto the surface, put my crayon flat side down and rubbed really hard. Look at the great pattern that it made. I wonder what you can find to make a rubbing of. After this, I realised I was standing on my veranda decking. The decking is old and worn and really rough. So I put my paper down on top, I chose another crayon, put it flat side down and made a rubbing. It made another interesting mark on my paper. Now this bit was really fun. I went down the steps off the back veranda, down onto the grass, and thought, I wonder what pattern grass might make. So I put my paper down onto the grass, stepped on it, pressed really hard down with my foot, and twisted the paper into the ground, twisting this way and that. I did rip a hole in the paper, but that's okay. That'll just make my map more interesting. It didn't make very many marks, but maybe you might have more luck. See how you go. Next, I found some dirt. We had just freshly planted a tree and the dirt was nice and wet. So I picked up a small handful, dropped it onto the paper and smudged it all over. It made a pretty good mark. Why don't you try it? After that, I went to the gravel driveway. I searched the gravel stones to find a stone that looked like it was made of clay. I thought maybe it might make a mark. Some stones won't work, but it's worth trying if you've got some rocks in your garden anywhere. This one did make some nice brown scratchy marks. Give it a go. I also tried some rose petals. Unfortunately, we only have white roses in the garden and they didn't make any marks at all. If you have any flowers that are red or bright yellow or orange, and if you ask Mum and Dad if you're allowed to do it, why don't you see if they can make some marks? Next stop in my backyard was a tree trunk. I thought the bark looked really nice and rough, so I put the paper flat against the bark and rubbed the crayon flat side down to see what mark it would make, and this is what happened. The wall of the house was next. I did the same thing as before, put the paper against the wall, got my crayon, put it flat side down and rubbed really hard. My map is really starting to take shape. After you've finished making all of your rubbings in the backyard and all of the marks on your paper that you think you need, and your map is nearly finished, this next part you really do need an adult to help. You will need a tea bag and some hot water, and an adult must do this part for you. Once the tea has cooled down, we're going to rub the tea bag all over the paper to make it look really old and a really interesting colour. If you can't do this part, it doesn't matter, your map will still look amazing. This is when the tea has cooled down and how we're going to rub it across the paper. This backyard map is nearly finished. Once the tea has dried, you screw your map into a tiny ball as tight as you can. Don't worry, we're going to unwrap it again. It'll just make it look older. Ta-da! Here is the finished map of my backyard. This part you might also need some help from an adult. Draw some tiny tracks all around your map, showing each of the places where you visited and made a mark or a rubbing. An adult might write the names of the places that you visit. You could even draw little pictures of the parts of the backyard where you made your rubbings. Don't forget to take a picture, pop it on Seesaw, and let me check it out too. I can't wait to see maps of your backyards. Good luck. Have fun.